Now let's look at the graphs of power functions. Now this is going to be important. We have to kind of memorize what these things look like. If we limit ourselves to n being a positive integer, so no longer are we looking at n being a real number, just a positive integer. And again, to remind ourselves what is a positive integer, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay, those are positive integers. I could also have it being 0, so it should be a positive integer and can be equal to 0. But for this particular look, I'm going to leave it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So when I look at the graph of such a function, it's limited to 2 looks, which also depend on the value of a, which we recognize as a vertical either stretch, compression, and depending on the sign, and if a is less than 0, then a flip across the x-axis. So that's important to remember that that's going to be the case if a happens to be negative. So what are the 2 looks? I'm going to first draw the most basic, y equals x squared. If it's y equals x squared, all of a sudden what I have is, as you mentioned, it's a parabola. So at 0, 0, at 1, it's 1, and at -1, it's 1. At 2, it's 4, and we get this look. At -2 is 4. So we have this kind of, well, this parabolic function at this point. Another look is this, y cubed. If it's y cubed, all of a sudden we have this other look. At 1, it's 1. At -1, it's -1. At 0, it's 0. At 2, 2 cubed is 8, so you can't quite see it here, but if I were to graph this, it looks like this. And then there's like this little S that it does. And it goes on forever like this. Now, keep in mind that if we have a situation where x equals to n and n is even, all of a sudden, what happens, for example, if it's to the 4th or to the 6th or to the 8th, what is going to happen is, so let me draw the parabola one more time here. If I go to x to the 4th, what is going to happen? It's these 3 points are going to stay exactly the same. However, if I try to graph y equals x to the 4th, all of a sudden, when I'm between -1 and 1, because I am raising a number less than 1 to the 4th power, it goes towards 0 faster. So what's going to happen, it's going to get narrow. It's going to go below the green line there. And then when it gets to the other side, because of the 4th power, once it's greater than 1, it's going to climb faster. So the look of a power function, if it's even, is always going to look like a parabola. As a matter of fact, the more n goes up, what winds up occurring is that this thing flattens out. I'm sort of running out of space, but let's say, for example, that we're looking at y equals -x to the 6th, just to change it up a bit. Since it's negative, I know it's going to be flipped upside down because of the 6th power. What is going to happen? So these points are still the same. 1, -1, -1, 1, -1, -1 again. Again, this flips upside down, but it's going to go much flatter, so it looks something like this. It almost feels like you're dumping water into a, like this is a bag, and then you keep dumping water, you dump the water, and this is a flexible like bag. All of a sudden, the sides, the bottom sides start to collapse and start getting flatter, and that's what's occurring here. So 8th, it will get even flatter. 10th, even flatter, and so eventually, I mean, if you go high enough, it just starts looking like this, almost like a square. And something similar happens if now we go y equals x to the n is odd. All of a sudden, what I get is this look. So the odd parts are exactly the same. They have this S look, but if as the power goes up, this, like just like the parabola, will start to get flatter, 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 flatter like this. So if n is odd, this is kind of the look. If n is even, that's kind of the look. Okay, so yes, and again, if it goes up, all will happen is this part will get flatter, flatter, flatter. If n goes high enough, all of a sudden it just might look something like this. And the curvature starts to kind of sort of disappear. But when you graph these, make sure you throw in a little S, like a little S curve. And that's kind of the basic looks of a power function, barring the two last cases. Obviously, if y is equal to x to the first, then that's just a straight line, right? That's the 45-degree line. And if another possible value is x to the 0, and then all of a sudden, if that's the case, you get a horizontal line at 1. But these are the two other cases. Again, if it's even, it looks something like this. If it's odd, that's just sort of looks something like that.